I was standing in my own dining room at midnight, wearing a simple black dress and an apron, holding a tray of champagne glasses. 50 guests filled the space, all dressed in expensive suits and cocktail dresses, celebrating my husband's promotion to vice president. The room buzzed with conversation and laughter. Crystal clinked against crystal. Someone had turned on jazz music that floated through the air. But I wasn't sitting at the table enjoying any of it. My usual seat beside Garrett was occupied by someone else. Simone. The beautiful 28-year-old analyst from his firm with perfect hair and a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She was wearing my necklace. The diamond piece that Garrett's grandmother had given me at our wedding 7 years ago. The family heirloom that was supposed to stay in the family, passed down through generations. It sparkled against Simone's throat as she threw her head back laughing at something Garrett whispered in her ear. Her hand rested on his arm. Casual. Possessive. Like she had every right to touch him that way. I'd spent the last 6 hours serving food to these people. Refilling wine glasses. Clearing plates. Answering questions about where the bathroom was and whether we had any sparkling water. In my own home. At my own husband's celebration. Several guests had given me strange looks throughout the evening. Confused glances. Uncomfortable expressions. A few people I'd known from my own corporate days, back when I had a career, had looked at me with something that felt like pity. But the worst was Lawrence Hartford, Garrett's boss. A dignified man in his 50s who'd always treated me with respect back when I worked as an executive assistant. His eyes had followed me all evening with an expression I couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe? Or anger. His wife Diane had stopped me earlier while I was serving appetizers. "Veronica, what are you doing?" she'd asked quietly. "Why aren't you sitting down?" Garrett needed help with the service, I'd said, keeping my voice neutral. The look she'd given me made my cheeks burn with shame. Now, as midnight approached, I lifted the tray of champagne glasses and started moving through the crowd again. My feet ached. My face hurt from holding a polite smile for 6 hours straight. Garrett caught my eye from across the room and made a subtle gesture toward the table. "Hurry up. We're ready for the toast." I moved faster, offering glasses to guests who took them without really looking at me. I was invisible. Just part of the background. The help. When everyone had champagne, Lawrence stood up. He was tall and commanding, the kind of man people naturally listen to. The room went quiet almost immediately. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he said, his voice carrying easily across the space. "We're here to celebrate Garrett's well-deserved promotion to vice president." Polite applause. Garrett stood and gave a small bow, soaking in the attention. "Before we toast," Lawrence continued, and something in his tone made me look up. "I'd like to acknowledge someone who has been conspicuously absent from this celebration despite being in the room all evening." My heart started pounding. Lawrence's eyes found mine across the crowded room. "Veronica, would you please join us at the table?" The room went completely silent. I stood frozen, the empty tray in my hands, not understanding what was happening. Garrett's smile faltered. His face went pale. Simone's hand dropped from his arm. "I believe," Lawrence said, his voice pleasant but with steel underneath, "that you've been serving all evening when you should have been seated as the guest of honor. After all, this is your home. Your husband's success is your success too, given the sacrifices you've made." I could feel every eye in the room on me now. Lawrence looked directly at Simone. "And I believe you're in Mrs. Garrett's seat." Simone's face flushed bright red. "Also," Lawrence continued, his voice dropping to something colder, "wearing her jewelry, I see. The necklace that Garrett's grandmother gave to Veronica at their wedding." "That's an interesting choice." The room erupted in whispers. Garrett stood up quickly. "Lawrence, this is really not." "Not what?" Lawrence interrupted. "Not appropriate?" "I agree. Which is why I think we need to address what's really happening here." My hands were shaking. I set down the tray carefully on a side table and removed my apron with as much dignity as I could manage. I had no idea what Lawrence was about to do. But something in his expression told me that everything was about to change. Let me take you back to 3 days earlier, when this nightmare began. When Garrett told me about his promotion and what he expected from me. when I first realized just how far he was willing to go to humiliate me. 3 days earlier, I was folding laundry in our bedroom when Garrett came home from work. He was earlier than usual, and I could tell immediately that something had happened. His whole face was lit up with excitement. "I got it," he said, dropping his briefcase by the door. "The VP promotion. Lawrence announced it this afternoon." I set down the shirt I was folding and smiled. "Garrett, that's wonderful. You've been working toward this for years." He'd been obsessed with this promotion for the last 18 months. Late nights at the office. Weekend calls with clients. Constant networking events. I'd supported all of it, even when it meant eating dinner alone most nights. "Lawrence wants to celebrate," Garrett continued, pacing the room with nervous energy. "A dinner party. Saturday night. Here. Here? At our house. Yes. 50 people. Colleagues, clients, important connections. He's arranged everything already." I felt a flutter of excitement. I'd always enjoyed hosting when we had dinner parties, back when we used to have them. "That sounds perfect. I'll start planning the menu tomorrow. We can use the good china, maybe hire someone to help serve." "Actually," Garrett interrupted, "we need to talk about that." Something in his tone made me stop. He sat on the edge of the bed, not quite looking at me. "I need you to handle the service on Saturday." "Of course. I'll coordinate with the caterers." "No, I mean you. Serving the food. Managing the drinks. Making sure everything runs smoothly." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I laughed awkwardly. "You're joking, right?" "I'm completely serious." His voice was calm, businesslike. "We can't afford professional servers for 50 people, and I need everything to be perfect. You're good at this kind of thing. Garrett, I'm your wife. I should be sitting beside you, not serving your guests. And you will be. Just, in between managing things. Making sure plates get cleared, glasses get refilled. That's what hired help does. Not the host's wife." His expression hardened slightly. "Simone has offered to help with hosting duties. She knows everyone at the firm, understands the corporate culture. It makes more sense for her to handle that part while you focus on the logistics." Simone. The name had been coming up more and more in Garrett's conversations over the past few months. The brilliant young analyst. So helpful. So impressive. So eager to learn from him. I'd met her once at a company function. She was beautiful in that effortless way some women are, with glossy dark hair and perfect skin. She'd looked at Garrett like he was the most fascinating man in the room. And she'd looked at me like I was furniture. "Why can't Simone serve if she's so helpful?" I asked carefully. Garrett stood up, irritation flashing across his face. "Because Simone is a respected analyst at the firm. She has a position, a career. You're..." He trailed off, but the implication was clear. "I'm what?" "You're not working anymore, Veronica. You haven't worked in 5 years. This is how you can contribute to my success." The words hit like a slap. I'd left my job as an executive assistant because Garrett had pushed me to. He'd said my career made him look bad in front of his colleagues. That their wives didn't work, and it made him seem less successful that his wife earned her own salary. I'd given up my independence, my income, my identity outside of being his wife, because he'd convinced me it was the right thing to do. For us. For his career. Now he was using that sacrifice against me. "I don't think this is a good idea," I said quietly. "Well, I do. And it's my promotion, my celebration. I need you to support me on this." We argued for an hour. I tried to reason with him, to explain how humiliating it would be to serve at my own husband's party. But Garrett wouldn't budge. He accused me of being selfish. Of not caring about his career. Of always making everything about me when this was supposed to be his moment. By the end, I was exhausted. Worn down. And he knew it. "Just think about it," he said, his voice softer now. Manipulative. "Think about how much this promotion means to our future. To our financial security. This is important, Veronica." The next day, he came home with a detailed list. Tasks for the party. Instructions for serving each course. A schedule breaking down my responsibilities minute by minute. I looked at the list and felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Simone will arrive at noon on Saturday to get ready," he said casually, reviewing his own notes. "She'll need to use the guest bathroom. Get ready for what? For the party. She's representing the firm alongside me. She needs to look the part. I'm representing our household. I'm your wife. He didn't respond to that. Just kept reading his notes. That evening, I was putting away groceries when he came into the kitchen. Oh, one more thing, he said, almost as an afterthought. Simone will need to borrow some jewelry. Something elegant. Lawrence's wife Diane will be there, and first impressions matter. My grandmother's necklace flashed through my mind. The diamonds Garrett's family had given me. I had a terrible sinking feeling. What kind of jewelry? I asked slowly. That diamond necklace. The one from my grandmother. It would be perfect. I turned to face him fully. Garrett, that necklace was given to me. It's mine. It's a family heirloom. And Simone is representing our household at an important event. She needs to look sophisticated. I'm your wife. I should be wearing it. You'll be in the kitchen most of the night. You won't need it. The casual cruelty of the statement took my breath away. I'm not giving my necklace to another woman to wear at your celebration while I serve her dinner. His face went hard. You're being childish. This is about my career, not your ego. We fought again. Worse this time. He called me selfish, ungrateful, jealous. Said I was threatened by Simone because she was successful and I wasn't anymore. Each word was designed to hurt. And they did. By Friday night, I was too tired to fight anymore. Saturday morning, when Simone arrived at our door with her designer bag and confident smile, I knew I'd lost this battle. I just didn't know yet how much worse it was going to get. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies that matched my mood. I woke up to find Garrett already downstairs, arranging furniture and reviewing his notes. When I came down, still in my pajamas, he was laying out a seating chart on the dining table. I scanned it looking for my name. It wasn't there. Where am I sitting? I asked. He didn't look up from his chart. You'll be moving around serving. You won't need a seat. The words hung in the air between us. Final. Non-negotiable. Garrett. We've already discussed this, Veronica. Please don't start again. This is my day. I went back upstairs and stood in the shower for 20 minutes, letting the hot water run over me while I tried to figure out how my life had gotten to this point. At noon, the doorbell rang. Simone. She breezed in wearing designer jeans and a silk blouse, her hair perfectly styled even though the party wasn't for 6 more hours. Hi, she said brightly, looking past me like I was invisible. Garrett, I'm here. He came out of his office with a smile I hadn't seen him give me in months. Perfect timing. Come on, I'll show you where you can get ready. He led her upstairs to our guest room like she was an honored guest instead of his colleague. I heard them laughing about something as they disappeared down the hallway. I went to the kitchen and started reviewing the catering delivery schedule, trying to focus on tasks instead of the knot of anxiety in my stomach. An hour later, Simone emerged from the guest room. She'd changed into a stunning red dress that hugged her body perfectly. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. She came into the kitchen where I was unpacking wine glasses. This house is beautiful, she said, running her hand along the marble counter. Must be nice. There was something in her tone that made my skin prickle. Like she was already imagining it as hers. Thanks, I said shortly. Garrett appeared in the doorway. His eyes swept over Simone, and I saw something in his expression that made my chest tight. Admiration. Desire. He looked at her the way he used to look at me. You look perfect, he said to her. Then he turned to me. Veronica, Simone needs that necklace we discussed. My hands stilled on the wine glass I was holding. Garrett, I really don't think. Please don't make this difficult. His voice had that edge it got when he was losing patience. Just get the necklace. Simone was watching us with barely concealed amusement. Like this was entertaining to her. That necklace was given to me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. By your grandmother. At our wedding. It's mine. It's a family heirloom that represents the Garrett name. Tonight, Simone is representing our family alongside me in a professional capacity. She needs to look the part. I'm your wife. I'm your family. I should be wearing it. You're being selfish. His voice was rising now. This is the biggest night of my career and you're making it about jewelry. Do you have any idea how that makes you look? Simone shifted her weight, drawing attention to herself. If it's going to cause problems, I can wear something else. I have other pieces. No, Garrett interrupted. The necklace is perfect. Veronica is just being difficult. We stood there in a tense triangle. Garrett glaring at me. Simone trying to look innocent, but failing to hide her satisfaction. Me, holding a wine glass and feeling my marriage crumble around me. Fine, I finally said. I'll get it. I walked upstairs to our bedroom, my legs feeling heavy. The necklace was in my jewelry box, nestled in velvet. 3 generations of Garrett women had worn it. His grandmother had placed it around my neck herself, tears in her eyes, welcoming me to the family. Now I was handing it to my husband's mistress. Because that's what Simone was, wasn't she? Maybe not physically yet, though I was starting to doubt even that. But emotionally, professionally, socially, she'd already taken my place. I brought the necklace downstairs and held it out to Simone without a word. She took it with a smile. Thank you so much. I'll take good care of it. She turned her back to Garrett. Can you help me with the clasp? I watched my husband fasten my necklace around another woman's throat. His fingers lingered on her skin longer than necessary. She tilted her head, giving him a coy smile over her shoulder. Beautiful, he said softly. Simone touched the diamonds, admiring herself in the hallway mirror. It really is stunning. It looks even better than I expected. The casual cruelty of the comment hit me like a physical blow. Better than expected. Like it had been wasted on me. I turned and went back to the kitchen before either of them could see the tears in my eyes. At 6 o'clock, guests started arriving. I'd changed into my simple black dress, the one Garrett had approved because it looked appropriately understated, and tied on the apron he'd left out for me. For the next 6 hours, I moved through my own home like a ghost. I served appetizers to people who used to be my colleagues. Refilled wine for clients I'd helped Garrett court. Cleared plates while conversations swirled around me about promotions and market trends and office politics. And I watched Simone hold court at the dining table, sitting in my seat, wearing my necklace, laughing with my husband while everyone treated her like she belonged there. At 11:45, I was in the kitchen loading champagne glasses onto a tray for the midnight toast when I heard voices in the hallway. Simone and Christopher, one of Garrett's colleagues. I froze, listening. How much longer does he plan to keep the wife around? Simone asked, her voice low. Christopher laughed. He's working on it. Divorce is expensive, but once this promotion goes through and he gets his bonus, he'll have the resources to cut her loose. Good. She's pathetic. Did you see her serving us all night? I almost felt sorry for her. Don't. She had to know this was coming. You can't hold on to a man like Garrett if you have nothing to offer. I can offer plenty, Simone said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. In ways she clearly couldn't. They laughed together and moved away. I stood in my kitchen, the champagne tray shaking in my hands, my worst fears confirmed. My husband was planning to divorce me. He'd been planning it for months, maybe longer. This whole night, the serving, the humiliation, giving Simone my necklace and my seat, it was all part of pushing me out. Making me so miserable I'd leave on my own, or making me look so pathetic that no one would judge him for leaving me. I set down the tray before I dropped it. My hands were trembling. My whole body was trembling. But underneath the hurt and humiliation, something else was rising. Something harder and colder. Anger. I picked up the tray again, my hands steady now, and walked toward the dining room. It was midnight. Time for the toast. Time for everything to change. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known while I was standing in that kitchen with my world falling apart, was that someone else had been watching all evening. Lawrence Hartford had arrived with his wife Diane at 6:30 sharp. Garrett had greeted them at the door with his biggest smile, shaking Lawrence's hand enthusiastically. Thank you so much for coming, sir. And for arranging all this. Congratulations on the promotion, Garrett, Lawrence had said. Then he'd looked around. Where's Veronica? I'd heard this exchange from the kitchen where I was arranging appetizer trays. I'd held my breath, waiting to hear how Garrett would explain my absence. Oh, she's managing the service tonight. Making sure everything runs smoothly. You know how she is, likes everything perfect. Diane had frowned. She's serving? Why isn't she sitting with us? Just helping out, Garrett had said smoothly. We wanted to keep things intimate, and Veronica offered to handle the logistics. That was a lie. I hadn't offered anything. Lawrence and Diane had exchanged a look I couldn't see but could imagine. They both knew me from my corporate days. Lawrence had been my boss for 3 years before I'd left to support Garrett's career. He'd always treated me with respect, had written me a glowing recommendation letter when I'd reluctantly resigned. As the evening progressed, Lawrence watched everything with growing concern. He watched me serve appetizers to guests who barely acknowledged me. He watched Simone at the dining table, her hand constantly touching Garrett's arm, wearing jewelry that Lawrence recognized because he'd been at our wedding when Garrett's grandmother gave it to me. He watched Garrett ignore me completely except to make subtle gestures when he needed something, more wine, plates cleared, another round of appetizers. He watched other guests notice and look uncomfortable. Watched some of them avoid eye contact with me out of secondhand embarrassment. During dinner, Lawrence sat at the head of the table as guest of honor. Diane was beside him, and she leaned close to whisper, "This is wrong." "What is Garrett doing?" "I don't know," Lawrence had murmured back. "But I intend to find out." He'd been growing increasingly suspicious of Garrett and Simone for months. As their boss, he paid attention to office dynamics. He noticed how often they stayed late together. How Simone had received 2 promotions in 8 months, both approved by Garrett. How they'd started dressing better, how Simone had suddenly afforded a new car on her analyst salary. He'd asked HR to monitor the situation quietly. They'd found concerning patterns. Hotel rooms booked on the corporate card. Expense reports that didn't quite add up. Dinners charged to the company that happened on weekends. But he'd had no concrete proof of an affair. Until tonight. Watching Simone wear Veronica's necklace, sit in Veronica's seat, play the role of Garrett's partner while Veronica served them like hired help, it confirmed everything Lawrence had suspected. During the main course, when I was in the kitchen, Lawrence had excused himself and made 3 phone calls. The first was to his executive assistant, asking her to pull Garrett and Simone's personnel files and have them ready Monday morning. The second was to the head of HR, requesting an emergency review of Garrett's recent expense reports and Simone's promotion history. The third was to his personal lawyer, asking about company liability when executives violated fraternization policies. Lawrence had built his career on integrity. He'd come from nothing, just like I had, and worked his way up through merit and hard work. He had zero tolerance for executives who abused their power or treated people beneath them poorly. And watching Garrett humiliate his wife at his own celebration while flaunting his affair crossed every line Lawrence had. When Diane saw Simone touch the necklace and make that comment about it looking better than expected, she'd gripped Lawrence's arm. "Did you hear that?" she'd whispered furiously. "I did. We have to do something." That poor woman. Lawrence had been planning to give a standard congratulatory speech at midnight. Talk about Garrett's achievements, toast his future success, keep things professional and pleasant. But watching me emerge from the kitchen at 11:55, wearing an apron and carrying champagne for people who'd once been my peers, he changed his plans completely. He stood up at midnight and tapped his glass. The room went quiet immediately. Lawrence commanded that kind of respect. I was near the kitchen door, the tray of champagne in my hands, trying to be invisible. "Before we toast Garrett's success," Lawrence began, his voice carrying clearly across the room, "I'd like to acknowledge someone who has been conspicuously absent from this celebration despite being in the room all evening." His eyes found mine across the crowded dining room. "Veronica." I felt my heart stop. "Would you please join us at the table?" The room went completely silent. I could feel every single person staring at me. Garrett's face had gone pale. His confident smile was cracking at the edges. Simone's hand dropped from his arm like she'd been burned. "I believe you've been serving all evening when you should have been seated as the guest of honor," Lawrence continued, his voice pleasant but with steel underneath. "After all, this is your home. Your husband's success is built on the foundation of your support and sacrifice." I stood frozen. I didn't understand what was happening. Why Lawrence was doing this. He looked directly at Simone. And I believe you're in Mrs. Garrett's seat. Simone's face flushed bright red. Several people at the table shifted uncomfortably. Also, Lawrence's voice dropped to something colder. I notice you're wearing Mrs. Garrett's necklace. The one that Garrett's grandmother gave to Veronica at their wedding. I was there. I remember it quite clearly. The room erupted in whispers. Heads turning. People exchanging shocked looks. Garrett stood up quickly, trying to regain control. Lawrence, I appreciate the gesture, but this is really not necessary. Veronica is comfortable with the arrangements. Is she? Lawrence interrupted. Because from where I'm sitting, your wife has spent the entire evening serving your guests while your colleague wears her jewelry and sits in her seat. That doesn't look comfortable to me. That looks like humiliation. The whispers got louder. Diane stood up too, moving to stand beside Lawrence in solidarity. Simone, that necklace belongs to Veronica. I was at the wedding when it was given to her. Perhaps you should return it now. I could see Simone's hands shaking as they moved to the clasp. She looked at Garrett desperately, wanting him to defend her, to save her. But Garrett was staring at Lawrence with barely concealed panic. Lawrence, he tried again, his voice strained. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Simone was just helping. Helping with what exactly? Lawrence's voice was calm but deadly. Helping you have an affair? The room exploded. Gasps. Shocked exclamations. Someone dropped a glass. Garrett's face went from pale to bright red. That is completely inappropriate. How dare you accuse me of? Of what? Something that 3 different employees have reported to HR? Something I have documented evidence of in the form of hotel receipts and expense reports. Lawrence pulled out his phone and started reading. November 15th. Hotel Maximilian. Room booked on company card under your name. Same hotel, same night. Room booked under Simone's name. Rooms on the same floor. February 8th. Dinner at La Bernardine for 2. Charged to your department budget. Weekend. Simone was your dining companion according to the restaurant's records. He looked up. Should I continue? The silence was deafening. I stood there with the empty champagne tray, my apron still on, watching my husband's lies unravel in front of 50 witnesses. Christopher was trying to quietly leave. Other colleagues were suddenly very interested in their phones. And Simone's hands were fumbling with the necklace clasp, tears starting to run down her perfectly made-up face. I watched Simone's shaking hands struggle with the necklace clasp. She couldn't get it undone. Her fingers kept slipping, her face growing redder with each failed attempt. Finally, she looked at Garrett with desperate eyes. Help me. But Garrett was frozen, staring at Lawrence like he couldn't believe what was happening. Diane walked over to Simone. Allow me. She unclasped the necklace with quick, efficient movements and held it out toward me. I set down the champagne tray carefully and walked across the dining room. Every eye followed me. The silence was so complete I could hear my own footsteps on the hardwood floor. I took the necklace from Diane's hand. The diamonds were still warm from Simone's skin. Thank you, I said quietly. Diane squeezed my arm. I'm sorry we didn't speak up sooner. I looked around the room. 50 people who'd watched me serve them all evening. Who'd sat at my table, in my home, and said nothing while I was treated like hired help. Garrett found his voice finally. Lawrence, this is completely out of line. You've embarrassed me in front of my colleagues, made wild accusations. Wild accusations? Lawrence's voice cut through the room like a knife. Garrett, I have emails. Text messages recovered from company phones. Security footage of you and Simone entering the same hotel on 4 separate occasions. I have expense reports showing company money spent on personal dinners and gifts. Should I keep going? Christopher was halfway to the door now. 2 other colleagues had stood up, clearly wanting to leave, but not sure if they could. Garrett's face cycled through emotions, anger, fear, calculation. He was trying to find a way out, a way to spin this. Even if Simone and I have developed a relationship, he said, his voice taking on a reasonable tone, that's a private matter between me and my wife. It has nothing to do with my professional conduct. It has everything to do with your professional conduct, Lawrence interrupted. Simone is your subordinate. You approved her last 2 promotions. You control her performance reviews, her bonuses, her career trajectory. A relationship between you isn't just inappropriate, it's a violation of company policy and potentially illegal. Simone made a small sound, almost a whimper. Garrett turned on her suddenly. This is your fault. You pursued me. You made it clear you were interested. Don't you dare. Simone's voice was shrill now, panic replacing her earlier confidence. You told me you were getting divorced. You said your wife was just waiting for the right time. You said. I said nothing of the sort, Garrett snapped. You misunderstood. I have your texts. Simone was crying openly now, mascara running down her face. You said you loved me. That we'd be together once you handled things with her. She pointed at me with a shaking hand. The room was riveted. This was better than any drama they'd ever watched on television. I stood there holding my necklace, watching my husband and his mistress turn on each other, and felt strangely calm. I think, Lawrence said firmly, it's time for everyone to leave. Garrett, Simone, I'll see you both in my office Monday morning. 9 a.m. sharp. HR will be present. Guests started moving immediately, grabbing coats and purses, mumbling awkward goodbyes or just fleeing in silence. Christopher practically ran for the door. Several colleagues avoided looking at Garrett as they left. A few people stopped to speak to me quietly. I'm so sorry, one woman said. If you need anything, another offered. Diane hugged me. Call me tomorrow. Promise me. I promise. Lawrence was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked at Garrett with something like disappointment. I expected better from you, he said quietly. I promoted you because I thought you had integrity. I was wrong. Then he looked at me. Veronica, my lawyer will contact you Monday. Don't sign anything Garrett gives you until you've spoken with legal counsel. You have more leverage than you think. I nodded, not trusting my voice. After the door closed behind Lawrence and Diane, the house fell silent. Just me, Garrett, and Simone standing in the wreckage of the party. Simone grabbed her purse with shaking hands. This is all your fault, she spat at Garrett. You ruined everything. Get out, he said coldly. Gladly. She turned to me. You can have him. He's not worth it anyway. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Then it was just us. Garrett and me. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of me supporting his career, giving up my own dreams, trying to be the wife he wanted. And this is where it had led. He stood in the middle of the dining room, his expensive suit rumpled now, his face blotchy with anger and humiliation. Do you have any idea what you've done? His voice was shaking. You've ruined everything. My promotion, my reputation, my entire career. I didn't do anything, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. You did this. You and Simone. Lawrence had no right to humiliate me like that. I'm going to file a complaint. Sue him for slander. For telling the truth? It was a private matter. You made it public when you turned me into a servant at your celebration. When you gave my jewelry to your mistress. When you sat her in my seat and treated me like I was nothing. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing now. I expected you to play your part. To support me like a wife is supposed to. By serving your guests while you flaunted your affair? She's not, we weren't. He stopped, realizing he couldn't finish that lie. Fine. Yes. Simone and I have been seeing each other. But that doesn't give you the right to destroy my career. I didn't destroy anything. Lawrence did his job. He investigated misconduct and addressed it. Because you made me look bad. If you'd just stayed in the kitchen like I asked, none of this would have happened. The sheer audacity of that statement left me speechless for a moment. Get out, I said quietly. This is my house. It's our house. Both our names are on the deed. And right now, I want you to leave. We need to talk about this. Figure out how to manage the fallout. There's nothing to manage. You had an affair. You humiliated me in front of 50 people. You planned to divorce me once you got your bonus. Did you think I didn't know? I heard Simone and Christopher talking in the hallway. His face went pale again. Veronica, I want a divorce. The words came out easier than I expected. Clear. Final. Garrett stared at me like I'd slapped him. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Fine, he said after a long moment, his voice turning cold. Good. Have your divorce. But don't expect anything. You have no job, no income, no prospects. You'll get whatever the lawyer says you're entitled to and not a penny more. We'll see about that. Something in my tone made him look at me more carefully. Maybe he was realizing that the compliant wife who'd served his guests all night was gone. He grabbed his keys and phone from the hall table. I'm going to a hotel. We'll deal with this later. Take your time. He paused at the door. You're going to regret this, Veronica. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. He left, slamming the door behind him. I stood alone in my destroyed dining room. Dirty plates everywhere. Wine glasses half full. The remains of a celebration that had turned into a disaster. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. Are you all right? Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. Another from Lawrence. Monday morning, my lawyer will contact you. Don't sign anything Garrett gives you. You have more leverage than you think. A third from Patricia, my old friend. I just heard from someone who was at the party. Call me now. I looked down at the necklace still in my hand. The diamonds caught the light, sparkling exactly the way they had on my wedding day when Garrett's grandmother placed them around my neck with tears in her eyes. Welcome to the family, she'd said. I wondered what she would think of her grandson now. I set the necklace on the dining table and started clearing plates. Not because anyone expected me to. Not because it was my job. But because it was my home, and I needed to clean up the mess before I could move forward. And I was going to move forward. Starting Monday morning. Sunday morning, I woke up in my guest room. I couldn't sleep in the bed I'd shared with Garrett, so I'd taken clean sheets to the spare bedroom and locked the door. My phone had 17 missed calls. 12 from Garrett. 5 from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored all of them and made coffee. At 9, Patricia showed up at my door with bagels and a fury I could feel from the porch. Tell me everything, she demanded, pushing past me into the house. I told her. All of it. The serving, the necklace, Simone in my seat, Lawrence's speech, the aftermath. Patricia listened with her jaw clenched, getting angrier with each detail. I'm going to kill him, she said when I finished. I'm actually going to kill him. Get in line behind Lawrence. What happens now? I don't know. Lawrence said his lawyer would contact me. I need to find my own attorney too. I know someone. Corporate divorce specialist. She's vicious. Let me make a call. By noon, I had an appointment scheduled for Monday afternoon with Patricia's contact, a lawyer named Rebecca Chin who apparently had a reputation for destroying cheating husbands in court. Patricia stayed with me all day. We ordered takeout and she helped me start documenting everything, dates I could remember Garrett working late, suspicious charges on credit cards, the timeline of Simone's promotions. This is good, Patricia said, reviewing my notes. Really good. The more evidence of the affair, the better your position. Monday morning arrived too fast. At 8:30, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Garrett? This is Mitchell Brooks, Mr. Hartford's attorney. He asked me to reach out regarding your situation. I put him on speaker so Patricia, who'd stayed the night, could hear. Mr. Hartford wanted you to know that he's representing your interests in this matter, not your husband's. He's prepared to provide testimony about what he witnessed Saturday night, and he's granted us access to the company's investigation findings regarding Mr. Garrett's conduct. Why would he do that? I asked. Because what happened was wrong. And because Mr. Hartford values integrity above office politics. Also, he wanted me to inform you that you have legal claim to half of all marital assets, including the house, vehicles, and any bonuses or stock options your husband has received during the marriage. Patricia was grinning and giving me a thumbs up. There's something else, Mitchell continued. Mr. Hartford mentioned you used to work as an executive assistant. He wanted to know if you'd be interested in returning to that field. My heart skipped. He's offering me a job? He's offering you your old position. The current assistant is retiring next month. The salary would be $90,000 annually plus benefits. He wanted you to know the offer stands regardless of what happens with the divorce proceedings. I sat down hard on the couch. $90,000. That was more than I'd been making when I left. He doesn't have to do this, I said. He says he does. He says you were one of the best assistants he ever had, and he should have fought harder to keep you when you resigned. This is him rectifying that mistake. After the call ended, I stared at Patricia in shock. You're getting your life back, she said softly. Your career, your independence, everything. At 2, I met with Rebecca Chin. She was 50, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste time on sympathy. Tell me everything, she said, pen ready. I did. She took notes, asked pointed questions, and occasionally made sounds of disgust. This is a strong case, she said when I finished. Adultery, financial misconduct, emotional abuse. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, but we can use the affair to negotiate a better settlement, especially given that you sacrificed your career at his request. How long will this take? Depends on whether he fights. Could be 6 months, could be 2 years. But based on what you've told me, I think we can pressure him into settling quickly. How? She smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Because if he fights, everything comes out in court. Public record. And men like your husband care more about their reputation than their money. Threaten to expose everything in detail, and he'll settle. That evening, Garrett called. I answered. We need to talk, he said. His voice was tight, controlled. Face to face. I have a lawyer. Talk to her. Veronica, please. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. We can work this out between ourselves. Like you worked out humiliating me at your party? Like you worked out your affair with Simone. Silence. I got a call from HR today, he finally said. I've been suspended pending investigation. Lawrence is refusing to recommend me for the VP position. Do you have any idea what this is doing to my career? I genuinely don't care. This is your fault. If you hadn't made a scene. I didn't make a scene. I served your guests while you flaunted your mistress. Lawrence is the one who called you out. Because you poisoned him against me. I haven't spoken to Lawrence since Saturday night. Whatever he knows, he found out himself. I could hear Garrett breathing hard, trying to control his temper. What do you want? He finally asked. A divorce. Fair division of assets. And my life back. Fine. I'll have my lawyer draw up papers. You'll get what you're legally entitled to. Nothing more. We'll see what the court says I'm entitled to. You're making a mistake. You have no income, no recent work history. You think you'll be fine on your own? You'll be broke in 6 months. Actually, I have a job offer. $90,000 a year. I start in 3 weeks. The silence on the other end was satisfying. Lawrence hired you? His voice was strangled. He offered me my old position back. He can't do that. That's retaliation. It's a job offer to a qualified candidate. What are you going to do, sue him for hiring me? Garrett made a frustrated sound. This is unbelievable. You've turned everyone against me. You did that yourself. He hung up without saying goodbye. Over the next 2 weeks, everything unfolded quickly. Garrett's suspension became a demotion. The VP promotion was given to someone else. Simone was transferred to a different department with a formal reprimand in her file. The company's investigation found enough evidence of misconduct that Garrett was lucky to keep his job at all. His lawyer sent settlement offers. Rebecca rejected them all as insulting. He's lowballing you, she said during one of our meetings. He thinks you'll take whatever he offers because you're desperate. We'll show him otherwise. Meanwhile, I started preparing to go back to work. I bought new professional clothes. Got my hair done. Updated my resume. Lawrence called to welcome me officially. I'm glad you're coming back, he said. The office hasn't been the same without you. Thank you for this opportunity. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. What Garrett did was unconscionable. And I should have spoken up years ago when I suspected he pressured you into quitting. You knew. I suspected. You loved that job. You were excellent at it. Then suddenly you resigned, and every time I saw you at company events, you looked a little more diminished. I should have asked if you were okay. I wouldn't have told you the truth back then. I know. But I should have asked anyway. 3 weeks after the disastrous party, I walked into Lawrence's office for my first day back at work. The office was exactly as I remembered. Same desk, same view, same energy. But I was different. Stronger. Clearer. Free. Patricia had sent flowers to my desk with a card that read, "Welcome back to the land of the living." Diane Hartford stopped by at lunch. "How's it feel to be back?" she asked. Like coming home, I said honestly. She smiled. Good. And if you need anything legal advice, a friend to vent to, someone to slash Garrett's tires, call me. I laughed. I'll keep that in mind. That evening, I drove home to my house. Garrett had moved out completely, taking only his personal belongings. The space felt bigger without him. Lighter. I walked through the rooms where I'd served his guests 3 weeks ago and felt nothing but relief that it was over. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. Garrett's lawyer called. They want to settle. They're offering 60% of marital assets plus 3 years spousal support. Is that good? It's better than good. It's an admission that they know they'll lose in court. Take it. I did. 3 months later, I sat in a conference room across from Garrett and his lawyer. The divorce papers were spread across the table between us, waiting for final signatures. Garrett looked different. Older. Tired. The confident, ambitious man who'd made me feel small for years seemed diminished now, his expensive suit hanging a bit looser than before. His lawyer reviewed the settlement terms one last time. The house would be sold, proceeds split evenly. Retirement accounts divided. I'd receive 3 years of spousal support and 60% of the marital assets in recognition of the career I'd sacrificed. This is robbery, Garrett muttered, scanning the numbers. His lawyer shot him a warning look. You agreed to these terms. Because you said fighting would make things worse. It would. The evidence against you is substantial. Be grateful she's not asking for more. I sat quietly, Rebecca beside me, and watched Garrett realize he'd lost everything he'd schemed for. The promotion was gone. His reputation damaged. And now he was losing half his assets too. How's Simone? I asked. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to see his reaction. His jaw clenched. We're not together anymore. What happened? Thought you two were in love. She was using me, he said bitterly. Once I got demoted, she disappeared. Won't return my calls. Rebecca made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Garrett's eyes flicked to her, then back to me. You must be happy. You destroyed my career, took my money, turned everyone against me. I didn't destroy anything, Garrett. You did that yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing I didn't earn. And you took everything I had, my career, my confidence, my self-respect. You're getting off easy with a financial settlement. He signed the papers with sharp, angry movements. When it was done, his lawyer gathered everything quickly, clearly wanting to leave. At the door, Garrett paused. You won't make it on your own. You think Lawrence will keep you employed? You're a pity hire. Once he feels like he's done his good deed, you'll be gone. If that happens, I'll find another job. Unlike you, I have actual skills and a good reputation. His face reddened, but he had nothing to say to that. He left without another word. Rebecca closed her briefcase with a satisfied click. Well done. You didn't take the bait. I'm tired of taking his bait. It's over now. The divorce will be final in 60 days, but the hard part is done. I walked out of that conference room feeling lighter than I had in years. The next few months passed quickly. The house sold for more than expected. I found a small apartment downtown with huge windows and space for the art supplies I'd started collecting again. Work became my anchor. Lawrence was demanding but fair, and I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed being good at something. Colleagues who remembered me welcomed me back. New ones respected my competence. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. Started going to gallery openings and book clubs. Remembered who I was before Garrett convinced me I was nothing without him. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Christopher at a coffee shop. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me. Veronica. Hi, Christopher. I just want to say, what happened at that party? I should have said something earlier. About Garrett and Simone. I knew it was wrong. Yes, you should have. He shifted his weight. For what it's worth, Garrett's not doing well. He's been passed over for 2 more promotions. Word got around about the affair and the misconduct. His reputation is shot. And Simone left the company. I heard she moved to California. I felt nothing hearing this. No satisfaction, no sympathy. Just nothing. They were part of a life I'd left behind. I hope you're doing better, Christopher said. I am. Much better. That evening, I met Patricia and Diane for dinner at our new favorite restaurant. It had become a weekly tradition, the three of us getting together to talk and laugh and support each other. To freedom, Patricia said, raising her glass. To new beginnings, Diane added. To never settling for less than we deserve, I finished. We clinked glasses and drank. Later, walking home through the city I loved, I thought about that terrible night 6 months ago. Standing in my dining room in an apron, serving champagne to people who pitied me while my husband's mistress wore my jewelry. At the time, it had felt like the lowest point of my life. But it had actually been the turning point. Lawrence's decision to speak up had changed everything. It had given me the courage to leave, the support to rebuild, the opportunity to reclaim my life. I'd sent him a thank you note the week after I started working for him again. He'd responded simply, "You would have found your way eventually." I just expedited the process. Maybe he was right. Maybe I would have left eventually. But I was grateful I didn't have to wait. 1 year after that disastrous celebration, I was thriving. I'd gotten a promotion at work. My apartment was filled with art and books and life. I'd started dating someone kind who treated me with respect. I wore my grandmother's necklace sometimes now. Not often, but occasionally when I wanted to remember how far I'd come. It didn't remind me of Garrett anymore. It reminded me of the night I took it back. The night I stopped being invisible. Lawrence threw a small celebration when I got my promotion. Just the team, nothing elaborate. But when he toasted my success, I felt genuinely honored instead of humiliated. To Veronica, he said, raising his glass. One of the finest professionals I've had the privilege of working with. Your dedication and integrity are an example to us all. Everyone clapped. I smiled and thanked them and meant it. After the celebration, Lawrence pulled me aside. I'm proud of you, he said. Not just professionally. For everything you've overcome this year. I couldn't have done it without you speaking up that night. You would have found your strength eventually. I just helped you find it sooner. Still, thank you. For seeing me when everyone else looked away. He nodded. That's what decent people do. We see each other. We speak up. We don't let injustice happen in front of us and say nothing. I thought about all the people at that party who'd watched me serve and said nothing. Who'd known about Garrett's affair and stayed silent. Who'd chosen comfort over courage. And I thought about Lawrence and Diane, who'd chosen differently. That evening, I went home to my apartment and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. I saw a woman who'd survived betrayal. Who'd rebuilt her career. Who'd reclaimed her dignity. I saw someone strong. The woman who'd stood in that dining room with a champagne tray, wearing an apron while another woman wore her necklace and sat in her seat, that woman was gone. In her place was someone who knew her worth. Who wouldn't accept less than she deserved. Who wouldn't be invisible ever again. Garrett had tried to erase me. To make me so small and insignificant that no one would notice when he replaced me. Instead, he'd freed me. He'd freed me from a marriage that was slowly killing who I was. From the belief that I needed him to survive. From the fear that I couldn't make it on my own. I didn't just make it. I thrived. And every time I put on that diamond necklace, the one Simone had worn so smugly, the one that had sparked Lawrence's intervention, I remembered. I remembered that I was never really invisible. I was just married to a man who refused to see me. But I saw myself now. And I would never let anyone make me disappear again. The celebration that was supposed to be Garrett's triumph had become my liberation. And for that, I was grateful. Not to him. Never to him. But to Lawrence, who spoke up. To Diane, who stood beside me. To Rebecca, who fought for me. To Patricia, who believed in me. And most importantly, to myself. For finally believing I deserved better. For taking my seat at the table. And refusing to ever give it up again.